So we've got a small enough group here that I don't mind. I've got a presentation. I don't expect that we'll make it through it all, so feel free to interrupt. I've got sample grasses here. We can go in any direction that you all want to. But my name is Kenneth Clayton. I'm an extension associate in Turfgrass in the Department of Plant Soil Science at UK. So came down from Lexington today to join you all. Thank you, Mary, for inviting me and for bringing Harrison. If all else fails, you all get to see a cute baby tonight. That makes it worth it. So just wanted to open it up and thinking about lawn management is what are there benefits to turfgrass? Because I assume if y'all are here that you do care about your lawns, but often get mixed groups and turf gets a bad rep. But can you all think of other or numerous benefits of lawns of turfgrass? And just say them out loud.
It makes everything pretty and green, as long as it's been watered and stuff. And then you don't have all these little garden areas that you have to clean around.
Yes,
Easiest
yes.
thing to take care of.
Yeah, but it also grows the larvae for Japanese beetles.
Yes.
Some of it.
So we'll focus on the benefits, because I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to discuss the negatives of it. But here in the front row, she has to define turfgrass. I would just define it as a low growing grass that's used for either aesthetic value, for playing sports on it, used to, for gardens in that way, but it's as opposed to say like a 4-inch, which is growing, it's taller growing, used for livestock to eat, to feed the animals. But grasses are ubiquitous. I mean, corn is a grass, rice is a grass. I like all grasses, but focus on turfgrass. So we heard beauty, aesthetics. So, yes?
Well, it's a wonderful place for children and grandchildren to play ball and frisbee and pets. And I mean, you need wide open spaces, and I think turfgrass is really important to cover those spaces.
Yes, absolutely. As much as I love trees, and it makes it difficult to play a game of wiffle ball or backyard baseball when all you have are trees. So, recreation. There we go. I try to go through them quick, so you might have got a sneak peek. Any others benefits to turfgrass y'all can think of?
Erosion control.
He's on it. Yes. So we see here erosion control, no grass after. So often, laying sod on slopes, planting grass, hydro seeding to keep the soil where we want the soil to be. Dust control, another one to think about with airports. That's pretty important. We don't want a lot of dust being sucked into those airplane turbines. And then when we got construction, going down the interstate yesterday, I see one of these big water trucks there because they can't kick up all that dust when they're working on I-64 going to Louisville there because you're trying to drive, so they need to keep the dust down. So benefits is they have grass in the middle of those normally. Cooling benefits. This summer, we would be happy to have a little bit more cooling, I think, than what we got. And our grass out there right now is not doing this as well because it's pretty, I walked through the front lawn here and it sounded like, crunch, crunch, crunch. So it's pretty crispy right now. But you can see here, air temperature of this water surface here was 94 degrees. The air temperature was 94. When they did the water temperature on top of the pond, it was also 94 degrees. On top of the lawn, it was 104 degrees. Went over to the just sand, 132. Out to the parking lot is 136 degrees. and then you go to the synthetic turf on the high school football field, and it's 165 degrees. So when it is 95 degrees in Paducah, you're gonna feel cooler when you walk out on a big lawn rather than when you walk out on this big black, it's common sense, but we just often don't think about those things. And even when it looks really pretty and green, when it's plastic with black rubber underneath of it, that's pretty hot. Enjoyment. I know my brother works in an office all day, sitting in front of the computer. He gets a lot of enjoyment out of going home and getting to work with his hands. So that's something else not to take for granted. This guy even wrote a rap song and put it on YouTube about mowing his lawn. So another one is property value. There's a lot of talk about having wild lawns and getting rid of your lawns, but when it comes to buying a house, when it comes to selling a house, the realtor's going to say, I recommend you mow your grass before you put your house for sale. So that there's going to be big benefits there. This was more of a scientific paper by Dr. Ross Braun out of Kansas State, and he actually went through the literature and found different benefits of the lawn, spectator entertainment, carbon sequestration, oxygen production, reduce noise pollution. That's one we don't think about. The ones that I thought was really interesting is deters crime. So when you go into a neighborhood and the lawns look nice, when you go to a shopping center and it's got nice landscaping, the grass around it looks nice, they actually found in research that it deterred crime. So a lot of benefits to turfgrass. But we live in Kentucky, and y'all live in Paducah, Kentucky, where, as my predecessor used to say, we can grow both cool season grasses and warm season grasses equally bad. So it is a difficult proposition. There's no, and we can talk tonight about this, we will, but there's no silver bullet when it comes to growing a lawn in Kentucky. If you move to South Florida, St. Augustine grass makes perfect sense. It's going to grow great all year. If you move to, Minnesota, Kentucky bluegrass is a no-brainer. But where we live, it's going to, 87, I think I saw today, and then later this week it's going to be in the 70s. And this past winter, we had pretty cold winter, lots of snow cover, and a lot of folks across the state had damage to their warm season grasses. So we get cold enough in the winters that the warm seasons aren't perfect. We get hot enough in the summers that our cool seasons are difficult to manage. So talking about lawn establishment, because I think a lot of folks have that on their mind right now, is that my lawn doesn't look good, it's on life support, and what do I need to do this fall? I think with our lawns, the mindset of, I love having this class tonight, because in the spring, Lowe's and Home Depot and Menards, they're all gonna have their, lawn seed out, their lawn mowers, everything advertising to take care of your lawn. But we actually need to think about it in the fall. That's the time that we want to improve our lawns so that we can make it through that following year. The spring is better than summer, but fall is best of all. So keep that in mind. That is a general rule of thumb for almost all lawn management in Kentucky. So when should you renovate your lawn? Benefits to doing it in the fall are that you're going to have 2 cool periods. So if you were to go out and seed right now, hopefully we get a little rain to come. The days are getting shorter, the soil's getting cooler, and we're not going to have as many highs in the 90s, highs in the upper 80s. So you're gonna have one cool period to establish that grass. And then in the following spring, you're gonna have a growth period there as well, before that grass has to go through the heat of the summer. And when I'm talking about establishing in the fall, I'm talking about cool season grasses. So typically, without knowing anything else, you know, somebody says, I live in Kentucky, what grass should I plant? I'm gonna recommend turf type tall fescue. We asked at this meeting in Paducah, I think we need to have a much bigger conversation around potential for warm season grasses. But if I go to Ashland, Kentucky, or Northern Kentucky, turf type tall fescue is definitely the best option there. So cool season grasses established in the fall, so you have that too cool period benefit. The soil temperatures are still warm, so you're gonna get quick germination in the fall, whereas in the spring, the soil temperatures are still cold, so that seed's gonna be much slower to germinate, as well as you're going right into the heat of the summer, and you're gonna have young seedlings that are gonna have to compete with that brand new grass. Is gonna have to compete with grassy annual weeds, such as your goosegrass and your crabgrass. So by planting in the fall, you're gonna have a grass that is more mature when it comes to that following summer, and hopefully be able to outcompete those grassy annual weeds. Something that we don't often do with our lawns, if Mary was having a class on planting a garden, there would be a lot of talk about what do we need to do to amend the soil? How, you know, our raised beds, we don't just throw, you know, whatever soil in there. We think about that a lot. I think we also need to think about that with our lawns. So if you are, you know, tilling up your lawn this fall, think about using that as an opportunity to incorporate some compost, incorporate some soil amendments in there. Bring a soil sample to the office, get a report, see if you need any additional nutrients beyond nitrogen for that. Just because we often, you know, I see new construction over here, and they come in, bulldoze all that, you know, smooth the land out, and then we're left with this type of soil right here. You got a 1/2 inch of topsoil, you know, at most maybe, if you're lucky, and then you throw your grass seed out there and you go, I don't know why it doesn't look very good. So just, you know, it's common sense, but for whatever reason, with lawns, we don't typically think about that. There we go. So here's where I'm gonna spend a lot of our time, and we can look at some of these samples here. But what grass should I plant? Anybody planted, re-established their lawn in the past 4 or 5 years? What'd you plant?
It was a blend of like rye, Kentucky bluegrass, and tall fescue.
Okay, yeah, so blend of ryegrass, hopefully perennial ryegrass, tall fescue, and Kentucky bluegrass. What grass do you all think we should plant in McCracken County?
Falcon fescue.
Falcon fescue, okay, so a turf type tall fescue. Any other thoughts? Zoysia, Bermuda. I hear the moans and groans on Bermuda grass. Yeah. So if we walked out here right now, I was just looking, the predominant species growing in this lawn were Lespedeza. It's green. It seems to be doing pretty well. So if you want a broadleaf weed for your lawn, you know, it'll be green come Labor Day. But it's not going to look you know, really appealing to you. The other species was crabgrass, and even it looked like it was crispy. And then Bermuda grass was out there, and it was green. So if we just look at what grass is growing in the stress periods, I like to look at that because to me that's an indicator of what am I going to have to do the least amount of work on to keep it green when I want to use my lawn. So I'm assuming most people are outside using their lawn between Memorial Day and Labor Day and on probably up to Thanksgiving. So what grass is going to look the best during that time, and what are you going to have to do the least amount of work, the least amount of inputs to keep it nice. So perennial ryegrass is one. If you just go to Lowe's down the street here and pick up a bag of grass seed, it's likely going to have perennial ryegrass in it. Perennial ryegrass is a very quick germinating seed. So you put it out there today, if you watered it, you could get it germinated probably 3 or 4 days and see it emerge coming up out of the ground. So it's extremely fast. So if you have an area that you just need ground cover quick, you want to prevent erosion, perennial ryegrass may be a good option. It is used a lot in athletic fields. So you can see here, this is a professional soccer field in Louisville. It looks really good when they striped it with their mowers. But what they're using it for is Bermuda grass as an overseed. So as that Bermuda grass goes dormant in the fall, they will then sow perennial ryegrass over that so that they have a green playing surface for the athletes to play soccer on. But in the heat of our summers, it is very prone to a number of diseases, and it's also not well suited for heat and drought tolerance. So perennial ryegrass, although the name says perennial, if you plant it, you should consider it more of an annual. So it's often mixed in with grass seed blends because you go out and you put it out right now and you come back in 2 weeks, you think, oh, this is phenomenal, I'm a hero. But that is just not going to hold up in the heat of Kentucky summers. So we don't generally recommend perennial ryegrass. Yes, ma'am.
What do you recommend along the Tennessee River? We have sort of a steep backyard, but it erodes a lot with the river level going up and down. So I don't know. We have a lot of shade too in places.
Yeah, that's difficult because it essentially has to survive the flooding and then the water going down. I would probably do a turf type tall fescue because it does pretty well in flood areas. But it's not going to creep like other grasses would.
Do you have to add more soil when it erodes so bad?
If it's washed away the soil, you
The roots
may.
are showing on some of the trees.
Yeah, that's just as much as I love good grasses, some area like that may benefit from a different ground cover rather than just the grass. So, and I'm sure Mary can recommend beyond grasses options there. So. Fine fescues. This is a picture of a lawn in Kentucky. Fine fescues in the spring will look very nice. They're very fine leaf blade. I didn't bring one with me. But if you feel the leaf blade, it feels more like the diameter of a pine needle than it does grass. So it's very thin, but it doesn't, not as pokey like a pine needle leaf. But again, in the heat, it will survive. It's very drought tolerant grass, but it's going to go dormant to survive. So it's going to be brown in the heat of the summer, and I say it will survive, but as we get farther south and west, like we are here, it's going to do better in northern Kentucky than it is in western Kentucky. and you get a hot summer, it can die. And it's gonna be very clumpy grass. So this is another one that is often in seed mixtures that you buy, but unless you sow it very, very dense at a high seeding rate, and keep it mowed very, very low, it's gonna end up forming clumpy patches. So a lot of times it's advertised as a shade tolerant grass, which it is more shade tolerant, but just be aware that it is not gonna be a dense carpet-like grass. It's gonna be clumps, individual clumps. Kentucky bluegrass, ironically, the Kentucky bluegrass named, our state's namesake, is not one that we recommend planting. So, it is a very nice grass. A lot of the horse farms in Lexington like it particularly because of worries about endophytes and tall fescues. But again, it doesn't stand up well in the heat of the summers. It is also more prone to disease than a turf-type tall fescue would be. And so you're gonna have a higher level of maintenance. It's gonna need more irrigation, potentially fungicides. It's hungrier. You're gonna need a little more fertilizer to maintain that good green color. That being said, is that if y'all want to, you can pass it. This is a forage type Kentucky bluegrass, but you can see just, the blades, feel it. Another thing to look at with these is, as you pass it around, is you can identify Kentucky bluegrass because if you look at the tip of that leaf blade, it's a boat-shaped or prow-shaped leaf blade, and that's a good way to identify bluegrass species. So when you're walking your lawn, you're not sure what it is, look at that leaf blade. And then also, if you look at the flat part of that leaf blade up close, you'll see it has two parallel like train track lines going down the middle of it. So Kentucky bluegrass, if you want.
It's soft.
It is, it's a very soft grass, but it's gonna require more inputs to look good in the summer. That being said is that there are some newer cultivars available. For instance, this is UK softball field, and it is Mountain View Seed 365 SS. So a mouthful, but it looks really good in the summer. We've got a sod farm in Lexington growing Baron Brug's HGT blend, and it looks, without irrigation, and it looks really good. So cultivar dependent. Generally not recommended, but if somebody's really sold on one Kentucky bluegrass, be sure to investigate newer cultivars that are gonna have a better heat and drought tolerance. So turf type, tall fescue. There are dozens of varieties, cultivars that are available. My general recommendation is to avoid Kentucky 31. So this is named again after our state, and again, we don't recommend it. Kentucky 31 tall fescue was found in Menifee County, Kentucky. A professor from UK was going to Menifee County to judge a sorghum syrup festival, and they said, "Did you see Mr. Shooter's farm and the hillside there and that green grass?" He said, "No, well, I'm interested." You can pass this around too. And he went over and it's, the winter time, everything was looking brown, and he sees some nice green grass on the hillside there, collected some samples, sat there for 7 or 8 years. Another professor from UK went to Menifee County and saw the grass. He collected some and came back and told the other professor, said, "Hey, I found this great green grass." And he said, "Oh yeah, I collected some, 7 years ago." And so anyways, that's a whole interesting story. But they developed what we now know as Kentucky 31 tall fescue. And it was selected predominantly because it stayed greener on the hillsides in eastern Kentucky, maintained those slopes, and you could feed livestock later into the year. They eventually found that there's problems with endophytes in those fescues, which are good for us in turf because it helps protect that plant from insects. It can make livestock sick, but it also makes insects sick, so it's beneficial for lawns in that case. But turf type tall fescue is going to have a much finer blade than that Kentucky 31 will, and it's going to really look closer to a Kentucky bluegrass, and it's going to have improved drought and heat tolerance over the Kentucky 31. Additional problem with Kentucky 31 is it's very difficult to get certified blue tag Kentucky 31 grass seed. So you're kind of, going by whoever your salesman saying, here's what's in the bag, but nobody's checked it. That happens all the time. But Kentucky 31 is one that you can often get some lesser quality grass seed in there. So we recommend turf type tall fescue. You said you Falcon. That's one. What did you say you planted?
Falcon 5.
Falcon 5. So yes, the popular opinion is the Falcons. Apparently available in this area, but there are several other varieties available. Basically, choose a newer variety. All of these companies breed to improve the turfgrass varieties. They don't come out with a new one that's worse than the one that came out 10 years before. So I generally don't have here's the variety everybody needs to get. See what you can find locally, and then do some research and see where it falls. The other thing is making sure that when you do buy your grass seed, if you're going to plant turf type tall fescue, is you want 100% turf type tall fescue. So that can be difficult to find. There's online retailers available, but usually you can go to a southern states or another distributor like that can get you 100% turf type tall fescue. You don't want the perennial ryegrass mixed in there, or even worse, annual ryegrass or wheat. I've seen all of those come up in the spring, and I said, well, did you seed last fall? Yeah, I seen it last fall, and why does my lawn look like this? And it's orchard grass, annual ryegrass, and some wheat, and a little bit of tall fescue mixed in there. So seed is one of those things that you unfortunately you kind of get what you pay with for that. So warm season grasses. We have two warm season grasses that are grown predominantly in the state of Kentucky. That is Bermuda grass, key the groans again, and zoysia grass. So Bermuda grass is what you all are typically used to seeing. Is just common Bermuda grass that is probably the only thing that's really green right now, and it just looks bad. It'll grow out onto your driveway, into your mulch beds, up your shrubs. It's very, very aggressive grass. It is very heat and drought tolerant. So that is a good characteristic of it as it's green this time of year. You can pass this one around. So there is a publication that you can get in the back there on controlling Bermuda grass. But if you are spending all of your time and money controlling Bermuda grass, then maybe you just embrace it and you say, how can I have the best Bermuda grass possible? So again, these are all pots grown in a greenhouse, and sometimes the irrigation doesn't kick on. Sometimes it's too hot, too cold, so they're not exactly what you should expect when you plant in your lawn. But this is an improved variety of Bermuda grass. This is Northbridge, but there's Tahoma 31, there's Iron Cutter, there's Rio, there's Riviera. There's a whole slew of grasses that are grown on golf courses, home lawns, sports fields, that are much finer leaf blade, more dense and low growing than our common type Bermudas. This is a little heavy, but just,
None of those stay green though, from November through the winter, do they?
yeah, great point. So, pass that around if you will. Yeah, that one's a little heavy, so grab it from the bottom. Warm season grasses are going to go dormant. So like I said, we can grow them really well. They'll look really good right now, but do keep that in mind that when we get that first frost, they're gonna start going dormant at that point. So in Paducah, it may be green from, say April up till October, in mid-October. And it's gonna start turning brown. But you can see here, this picture on the right, this is actually a zoysia grass lawn. But when it's maintained weed-free, it can look, I think, pretty good when it's dormant. And it's a cultural thing. Was teaching another class like this, and the lady was from Texas, and for her, everybody's lawn goes dormant in the winter because everybody has a warm season grass. So where we're used to seeing more green in the winter, like that Kentucky 31 on Mr. Shooter's hillside in Menifee County, it can be a cultural thing. So there's no silver bullet in the state of Kentucky. This is also another Bermuda grass here. This variety is called Tiff Eagle, and it's used on putting greens predominantly. Most golf courses, say from Bowling Green, south and west of here, are slowly transitioning to this on their putting greens versus cool season grasses. It is very, very fine, very, very dense, and a beautiful grass, but an issue with it is not winter hardy. So on the golf courses, they're out on the lake in the summertime, the superintendents, because the grass is growing good. But in the wintertime, if it gets about 25 degrees and below, they have to pull blankets out over those putting greens to keep it from dying in the wintertime. So Tiff Eagle is not something we would recommend necessarily for a home lawn, but something like the Northbridge or a Tahoma 31 would do quite well in the Paducah area. So, other option, anybody have Bermuda grass lawn?
Well, it's all mixed in.
Sure. Yeah, so sounds like most folks have some Bermuda grass in their lawns. Yeah, and even the common Bermuda grass can do really well if you mow it low enough and you fertilize it enough. But Bermuda's gonna be very hungry, so, fertilizing not in the fall, but say, May, June, July, August is when you're gonna wanna fertilize the Bermuda grass to promote that. But you can start putting in some of these newer varieties. And the nice thing about Bermuda grass is very aggressive growing. So you could even, say, I don't want to buy a whole, acre's worth of sod, because that price would be through the roof insane. But you start a small area in your backyard and you make your own nursery. Now you can pull plugs, you can take the rototiller over it and just lightly till it and make your own sprigs and spread that in your lawn. So there's options to do that. And I understand, some of you always get to the point, how do we kill it? But just keep that in mind. The other warm season grass, which is my favorite grass, is zoysia grass. This one, I'm not gonna pass around because it's sand-based and it is very heavy, so. But this is the same grass, this is, what is it? I can't even tell them apart now. Zeon zoysia grass, so very fine blade, zoysia, and the one that's just a hair darker is called Innovation zoysia. So both of those are grown in Kentucky, and are suitable towards home lawns. Pass that around. This is zoysia grass that has not been mowed. So I probably had this in the greenhouse for a year and a half.
What is that? What kind of grass?
This is zoysia grass, Zoysia. And so even in the worst case scenario, where you did nothing at all to your lawn, it's not gonna get that tall, you know? So a benefit to the warm season grasses like zoysia and Bermuda is, anybody know what these are called? Stolons. Yeah, so a stolon is an above ground stem that runs parallel on the ground. And at each of these internodes, where you see these grass blades coming out, that'll actually root into the ground and spread that way. So you can see these are pretty long, but you gotta remember this has been growing for about a year and a half in the greenhouse that's, 75 degrees. So it's growing 12 months out of the year. If you start thinking Kentucky, the zoysia grass is gonna really start slowing down here in the next couple of weeks. So again, like Bermuda grass, it will go dormant. And you wanna manage this by fertilizing in the summer. You can pass that around too. Feels very like a carpet, especially when they're shorter mown. The difference in Bermuda grass and zoysia grass is Bermuda grass is very aggressive. Zoysia grass is very, very slow growing. So once it is established, the zoysia grass is phenomenal. Everybody, wants that. What's the grass I can plant and I don't have to mow it and it looks really good? Unfortunately, that is not a thing because if plants are not growing, they can look really good, but then they become dead. My background is working on golf courses, and some of the very best putting greens that you'll ever play golf on is where somebody sprayed the wrong thing and has killed the green. But for that first 2 weeks when that grass is not growing, they're phenomenal. They'll be the fastest putting greens you ever play on. But then that guy's going to get fired because he killed the greens. So it is not a perfect solution, but zoysia is kind of in that situation where it is growing so slowly that you're going to have to mow that. Just throwing numbers out there, probably twice as much with Bermuda grass as you are with zoysia grass. And then you take a cool season grasses, and you're going to be mowing from probably March up until you could probably be mowing the first week of December and still get grass. So that whole time, and whereas with the warm season grasses, they do go dormant, but you're going to reduce those total mows over the year. So especially like cemeteries are always looking for what's the grass that can look good, but we don't have to be out here weed eating around, a million tombstones every day. So zoysia grass fits that bill. The downside of these grasses are there's very limited seeded varieties available. Most of them are vegetatively established. So that makes them a little bit more expensive, and there's just not as many cultivars available. And with zoysia grass in particular, because it is such a slow growing grass, the sod farmer who sells it to you or sells it to the distributor has to charge more for that grass because if he can get, cut the Bermuda grass and it's grown back in 2 months, versus if he cuts that zoysia grass, he's got another 12 months before he could potentially sell it again. So everything, comes with a cost. So I highly recommend for you all, and after the summer, consider warm season grasses. If not, Falcon 5 tall fescue. But, I'm sorry, remind me then. Mike and I were talking before, he planted their lawn in Falcon tall fescue last fall. It looks phenomenal. It got all the resources Simplot can throw at it, and it struggled this summer. So even when you're, doing everything by the book, sometimes the weather just doesn't cooperate. So keep that in mind. Warm season grass is a great option. Then turf type, tall fescue, and the next summer might be great. We get timely rains. It's not 100 degrees, but I anticipate that we're going to continue to have some stressful summers to come. Yes, ma'am.
I know this isn't a turf grass, but I know that some people who are trying to seed clover, because it's less mowing and stays green easier and nourishes the bee population. And, what are your thoughts on mixing clover in with your turf grass or just doing clover lawn? Have you had any experience with that?
Sure. I am always telling people, it's what are you wanting to use the lawn for? If it's your grandkids or your kids are out there playing barefoot all day, that clover could be an issue just because you don't want them stepping on bees. And I did that enough as a kid, and it hurts. But especially, if you've got a family member that's highly allergic, but if your goal is pollinators, then that could be a good option. There are some Dutch dwarf type clovers that are much lower growing, smaller leaves, so they're going to look more similar to a lawn. I have talked to Dr. Dan Potter at UK. If you Google Dan Potter and clover lawns, he did some research on that, and if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, they struggled with the clover dying in the wintertime. So it's not a bad option because clover can fix nitrogen. So atmospheric nitrogen, you don't have to apply fertilizer, those leaves die, it fertilizes itself, the lawn itself. But when I think about what makes a lawn aesthetically pleasing is usually uniformity. If you have 100% crabgrass lawn, right now, it probably looks, the best in the neighborhood. It's more green than anybody's lawn, but you're gonna have to be out there and mowing it 3 times a week because it's growing so fast, and it's not very dense. And then it's all gonna die because it's an annual. So the uniformity usually is what, if somebody doesn't know anything about a lawn, they just stand back and say, yes, that one looks really good, this one doesn't. That's that driving factor. So I would say, find something that blends well with the grass you have, or go 100% clover. The other thing on Bermuda grass, I will say, is be aware because you can get so much online now, and I know I'm probably this county. Everybody in here from Kentucky originally? Anybody move here?
Oh, I moved here a long time ago.
Like from where? What state?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Okay.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, Texas. Okay. So 40% of the room just raised their hands that they were not born and raised in Kentucky. And so I'm learning that because I was born and raised in Kentucky. I think of weather as Kentucky, but if you're from Texas or you're from Wisconsin, the climate here is different. And so it can be, you know, more or less depending on where you're from. But with online resources, you can buy really, really nice Bermuda grass that would do phenomenal in Florida, but is gonna die here in Kentucky. So talk to your extension agents and say, hey, I'm interested in this grass. What can you find out for me about it? This is a unique zoysia grass lawn. This is one of my very best friend's lawn, and he lives in Portsmouth, Ohio, in southern Ohio. And this is his lawn in the early spring. And these spring Virginia beauties are flowering across his entire lawn. The bees are all over it early in the spring, and that grass isn't growing at all. As those flowers start to fade and they've lived their life cycle, that grass is starting to green up. He mows it like a normal lawn. It looks
What
great.
are the flowers?
Claytonia, Virginicus, spring beauty, yes.
What color are they?
They're like a purplish, white purple. So they're you can do some unique things thinking about pollinators like the clover, you know, planting bulbs in your dormant lawn. It's not for everybody, but I love it. I think that's like the perfect, he mows, especially, you know, that far north, he doesn't start mowing until, you know, probably May, and he's probably done mowing here the next week or so, and he's got a, you know, beautiful lawn all year round, so.
So is that spring beauty annual or perennial flower? 'Cause-
It's a perennial.
So it's going to seed then and it's going to return.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I dig it out because it's sort of aggressive in my
Mhm.
landscape.
Yeah, that's the question is, what is a weed? It's the plant that you don't want in your lawn or landscape.
But I mean, it wouldn't reseed and it's zoysia grass wouldn't come, well, I guess
It does.
it does.
It comes up every year. So he has, in the early spring, it's dense enough, you know, it's pretty flowers, and the honeybees and all the pollinators like it. So it's desirable for him. Yeah.
What about wild violets? They're taking over my whole yard. And those people that come and spray your yard to kill the broadleaf, it doesn't touch them.
Yes, hold on to that. How much time do we got, Mary?
Like 10 minutes.
Okay. I want to tell you, I want to touch on just a couple things, and then I'll open the questions, and I don't have to go anywhere, so we'll let everybody go, and I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Just when it comes to lawn maintenance, I like to think of it, I'm a simple guy, how can we, you know, affect the growth of the grass? And so there's 4 main factors that affect the growth of the grass, and that is light, that's temperature, that's water, and that's fertility. We can't do anything about the light. The sun comes up when it's gonna come up, goes down when it goes down. We can't do anything about the temperature. You know, it's gonna be what it is. And the main 2 things that we can control for the health of our lawns is that water and that fertility. So we can get into a lot of technical stuff. You can get on YouTube and watch videos all night till your heart's content on everybody's special lawn care program treatments that they have. But when I go out and see grass that doesn't look good, and 99% of the time, it's related to water. It either has too much water, like we saw up until about 3 weeks ago when it shut off, or it doesn't have enough water. So sprinkler irrigation systems can help with that, but also that grass species selection. Selecting a grass that is, if it's a riverbank, one that's adapted more to flooding soils. If it's hot, dry, something that's adapted more to the heat and stress. This fall, mulch your leaves. If you can handle the confetti and leaves on the lawn, that's much better than bagging them. And no issues with disease or anything like that. Soil fertility, what's it cost to?
It just went up, so, for McCracken County, they can have 5 free soil tests a year though.
Okay, you just need one, and you got 5 free ones, and you don't even need it every year. So I'd go around your lawn, your front lawn, and collect maybe 10 samples, at random in the lawn. Get another sample from your back lawn. If you have a unique area that stands out, you could submit 3 samples there, and submit that to Mary. She can send it to me if there's anything funny. But I get agents all across the state send me soil samples, and 99% of the time, I just say, all you need is nitrogen. Grass grows really, really well, and if you are returning your clippings to the lawn, those nutrients are going back into the soil. If you get a soil sample for corn or rice or wheat or soybeans, all of those nutrients are being taken off of the soil. It's going to be much more detrimental if you do not add fertilizer to it. So 99% of the time, just applying nitrogen to your lawn is going to be the main thing to do. This is a map a colleague of mine put together of phosphorus probability of seeing a response in applying phosphorus to your lawn, improving the turf grass. So we are down here, McCracken County. Looks like we got somewhere between a 0 and 15% chance, and that's based upon 65,000 soil samples that have been submitted over the past, I forget how many years, to the University of Kentucky. He looked at those and used a number of 10 parts per million. And so if it was that or above, then you would not expect to see a response from phosphorus. So just use that as an example of, for turf grass, we typically just need nitrogen. Here is what it looks like if you have a phosphorus deficiency, is it'll turn purple like that. And it's like a light switch with turf grass. When you get beneath that threshold, it's going to turn purple. This is up in Dr. Doug Soldat in Wisconsin, and he put out a stencil, sprayed phosphorus there. The grass turned green again. It was fun. pH, I don't worry a lot about pH. This is grass growing on a 5.1. Looked phenomenal. I see grass growing up 7.8, 7.9. So read your grass before you read your soil report. You'll get a soil report and see, oh no, it says it's low in this deficient in this nutrient, and you go out to your lawn and it looks great, it's green, and you're mowing it twice a week, then your soil test is wrong. Your grass is telling you I'm mowing it twice a week. And we don't, have to worry. If we do have a deficiency, it's easy enough to apply NPK to the lawn to get it back to where it needs to be. I think I'll finish there and just open up for, we got maybe 2 more minutes. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What about having bowls in the yard? How do you control that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what is it?
Bowls and moles and bowls and tunnels.
Good luck.
Voles and moles. I like, the mole trap is still the best.
Really? I think it's mostly the bowls and it's the grubs or something that they eat.
Yeah, yeah. The mole trap should work on the voles as well. I haven't heard that complaint as much, but I know we have a lot of moles. And just, they make a spike trap, they make a scissor trap. But main thing on that is if you don't catch them within a couple days, move it.
It won't bother cats and stuff?
Uh,
They play with it?
No, the scissor trap especially not, because it's all underground. The spikes are up, but my cat kills the moles. She killed 4 in the past month.
Can I borrow your cat? I
I
don't
got-
want one permanently, but I'd take one that will kill moles.
Let's exchange contacts. I got 6 kittens that I need to
Well, I kind of believe in live and let live. The moles are killing off the grubs, which you don't want either.
So, yeah, great point. The moles do eat grubs.
Yeah.
The issue is that they also eat earthworms. So sometimes the populations can get so bad, it can really cause significant damage.
Yeah, I seen one where the ground was spongy with all the hills and holes in it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate y'all's time, and I wish we had covered more, but there's a lot to do, so.